We only have one lesson this week. It's going to be a little bit more informational, harder to kind of get the complete message across. It is on Olympic weightlifting. We're going to be talking particularly about cleans and snatches. This is one that I believe it's one thing to talk about it, another thing to go out and do it. I wish we had the opportunity to go out and actually try these movements today or this week, but unfortunately, we don't have those resources available to us, um, and the ability to kind of watch you guys and coach you up on it. So these are going to be more so the basics of it, just some little different points, cues, and so on, as well as just a brief background as to why we may use an Olympic weightlifting movement. So, Olympic weightlifting is a common component of strength programs. This can be for a variety of reasons, but for the main two reasons that we see it within strength programs is one, the biomechanical similarities to many sporting movements. And we'll kind of go into that a little bit later on. And number two is probably the biggest one is the large force and power production compared to many other exercises. So we talked about power when it comes to plyometric training. Another alternative to doing power, developing power, is Olympic weightlifting. This requires a combo of maximal strength and maximal speed. So going back to that thought of rate of force development, how fast can we put maximal force into the ground? That goes hand in hand with Olympic weightlifting. So the movements of an Olympic weightlift, you can see a clean and jerk, a snatch, and a push press. This lesson will be focusing mainly on cleans and snatches, as well as the hands-on portion of it. But you do see these kind of in the same realm as Olympic weightlifting movements. So some primary reasons for Olympic weightlifting. First and foremost, power development, strength, speed. It's a combination of the two of them to make that weight move the way it should. And number two is biomechanical similarities to sporting movements. So when we do Olympic weightlifting, we can see a lot of different improvements come from them or benefit from them. When it comes to Olympic weightlifting, this has been shown to improve jumping, sprinting, balance. A lot of that, once again, comes from rate of force development, balance being just the ability to maintain that weight and stabilize it as you go through the movement. A lot of this, though, is due in large part to the improvements of rate of force development. Right here on our right hand side, we see a little picture that's just showing some of the benefits of a snatch. So you can see a lot of these core stability, latch strength, mobility, explosive power obviously is one of the big things we're trying to get from. That can carry over into things like your vertical jump, your sprinting speed, and so on. So a lot of different benefits from Olympic movements. So the athletic similarities that we talk about when it comes to Olympic movements is one, the athletic position. That's going to be feet about shoulder width apart. We're going to be focusing our mental weight on the balls of our feet. We're not on our toes, we're not on our heels, but we're ready to make an athletic play. We're going to sit down a little bit in about a quarter squat position with our chest up, ready to move. And then another one is the triple extension. So that's going to be extension of our ankles, our knees, and our hips. So triple extension being that with the ankles, knees, and hips can be found in a ton of different athletic movements. So obviously Olympic weightlifting is our focus today. They're going to see triple extension in here. In this bottom right-hand corner, we see an example of what that triple extension looks like in Olympic weightlifting. So we see his ankles starting to extend. So he's getting up on his toes, extending his ankles. His knees are starting to straighten out, which is going to cause those to be extended. And his hips are coming through extending as well. So we're seeing extension in the ankles, knees, and the hips with this movement. So we see that carry over into sports with things like jumping for rebounds in basketball, sprinting on a fly route in football, gymnastics, backflips, and so on. So if we're looking at a sprint in particular and the carryover that we'd see from here, we just look at the picture above and see that extension in a sprint. So we see that extension in the ankles, that knees, that hips, all that is coming through. We're putting force through the ground. We're doing it fast. And that's where we see the carryover from that Olympic weightlifting movement. So now looking at the clean in particular. The clean is a movement that consists of forcefully pulling a bar from the floor or a hang position, which is going to be slightly below the knees. So that hang position would be kind of this part of the picture right here. From the floor is obviously the start picture. And we're going to bring that up to the front of our shoulders. This is going to be all in one movement without any interruption. So we see kind of a progression of that start from the floor, starting our first pull into our second pull, our drop and our catch right here. So we're bringing that from the ground up to our shoulders without any interruption. So now looking at that, breaking it down a little bit further, our starting position for our hang clean. We're going to want feet about shoulder width apart. So we see that in this lower picture right here. And it's going to be slightly more if that's comfortable for you. Feel free to do so. And the toes are going to be slightly turned out a little bit as well. Our hands are going to be a little bit wider than our shoulder width apart, just outside the knees. So we see a great starting position in this picture right here. Shoulder or hands are just beyond shoulders width, so we can drop comfortably beyond the knees. And we're going to grip the bar with a pronated grip. So that means our palms are going to be facing towards our body. We're going to want to roll our wrists in. So it's almost like you're doing a wrist curl up towards your torso. All right, that's going to help activate our lats so that we can have a nice strong pull as well as keep a nice flat back. So we see that right here in this upper left-hand picture. So right there, he's really pulling through the back. He's got a nice hip hinge that we talked about the other day. This next slide, we're going to see the first movement that we see from the hang clean. So we go from our starting position into an RDL right here. So we're going to drop into an RDL. So that's going to be just below the knees. We're going to emphasize a big butt, a big chest, and we're going to push our hips back towards the wall. During this time, we want to maintain bar contact with our legs. That's ensuring that we're not letting it get away from us so that we are going to really utilize our legs for the power. So just looking at this picture again. So this is our RDL position. He's going to keep that big butt, big chest. So he's emphasizing his chest. He's emphasizing his butt, which keeps his back nice and flat and neutral. And we're noticing that with that neutral spine, he's going to drop that bar just at that knee height, if not just below or slightly above, whatever's comfortable for you. Notice that that bar is still touching his legs the entire time. So as you begin to raise the bar, you're going to bring it up past your knees, and during that time, you're going to rapidly achieve triple extension. So ankles, knees, hips all start to extend. You're going to keep that bar relatively close to your body. And as you get fully extended through that knee, ankle, hip area, you're going to start to really powerfully shrug your shoulders. I call this the power shrug. So we're going to shrug our shoulders upwards with our elbows fully extended. So the legs are going to really get that bar moving. The shoulder shrug is going to continue that bar. And from there, when the shoulders reach maximal height, we're going to begin to bend our elbows. During this time, we're not actually pulling on the bar with our hands. We're just continuing the momentum. So we're going to bring our elbows back as we begin to pull our body underneath that we see in this next picture. So upon full extension of the lower body, we're going to pull our body under the bar and rotate our arms up and around the bar so our elbows are nice and high. We're going to simultaneously flex our knees, hips into a quarter squat position for our catch. And then once our arms are under the bar, we're going to lift our elbows up nice and high. And we're going to rack that bar across the front of our clavicles or our collarbones. And we're going to really start to stand in a nice erect torso. So when we catch that, we want an erect torso. So nice and straight, not bent over in front. We want our shoulders slightly ahead of our hips. And we want a neutral head position with flat feet. So upon gaining balance, you're going to stand up to a fully erect standing position. So that's just what we see right here. So that's our clean movement. When it comes to our snatch, we're going to see a lot of the similarities between the two. Triple extension is going to be achieved. We're going to have a nice shrug as we get to the top of our triple extension, continuing the bar upward. We're just going to see a difference in how we catch and how we grip the bar. So right here with our snatch, we're going to consist of forcefully pulling the bar from the floor once again, or a hang position slightly below the knees. But now we're going to pull that from the floor or below the knees to just over our head. Our elbows are going to be fully extended. So this is going to be all in one movement as well. So we see a time lapse of these pictures of the snatch. So we go from the bottom, bring it up. We start to achieve our triple extension and our shrug. And then we catch that bar over our head like so. So our starting position for the hang snatch, feet once again shoulder width apart, slightly turned out. Gripping the bar with a pronated grip with our palms facing towards us and our wrists rolled in. But now our grip is going to be wider than other exercises. So we see here in this picture is a noticeable difference from that of our clean grip. So a good way of finding out where to grip this bar for your snatch, once again, you want it to be symmetrical on each side. But if you were to put that bar in your hip and bend down, you can make a 90-degree angle with your elbows and your arm. And then you stand up, you should have a grip similar to this, all right? So that's going to be something that we would do with our hands on, but just trying to talk it out to you. So from there, we drop out into the RDL just like we do with our clean. Our big butt, big chest, pushing our hips back and maintaining the bar contact with the legs is the same as the clean. As the bar begins to raise up past your knees, you're going to rapidly achieve that triple extension. And at that full extension, you're going to start to powerfully shrug your shoulders. So everything at this point, with the exception of the grip, is the exact same for the snatch as it is for the clean. Once we get that shoulder shrug at its highest, you're going to begin to flex the elbows once again, flexing the elbows up and back, and we're going to begin to pull our entire body under the bar. So once we've gotten full extension of the lower body, we're going to pull our body under the bar and rotate our hands around the bar, simultaneously flexing our hips, knees into a quarter squat position. So that's what we see right here on our catch. Once our body is under the bar, with the bar caught over our head and slightly behind the ears, we're going to keep those elbows fully extended. So we see that right here. His elbows are nice and straight, extended out throughout the entire movement after the catch. We have a nice erect, stable torso, so that way we're straight up and down and balancing that weight properly. A neutral head position, so our head's not too far forward, it's not too far back. Our feet are flat and our body's weight is over the middle of our feet, right in there. So we want that weight to be in the middle, not on our heels, not on our toes. Once we gain control and balance, we stand up to a fully erect standing position as we stabilize that bar overhead. So that's a very quick explanation of Olympic movements. I have to say that it's really not the same as going out and doing them themselves, but those are just some cues that I would talk about, some things I would keep an eye on as I do those movements. I wish we had the opportunity to do it together. I'm not going to ask you to do these necessarily on your own, because I do think it's a skill that requires having a coach there to watch and cue you up and help you out with. But this would be kind of how I progress it with a hands-on. I begin with a warm-up. On a clean day, I want to do a command banded PVC RDL. So that's just teaching us the grip, the hip hinge, as well as the shoulder pack required to keep that bar close to our legs. From there, I'd want to do some body weight squats so that we can kind of get comfortable with our catch. We go into a barbell front squat, so just feeling that squat once again with a little bit more of a load. We go into some command barbell RDLs. So that same movement we just did with our PVC, now we have a barbell, so it's loaded up, pulling it into our legs, and then we go into a hang pull or the power shrug. So it's just the shrug with the triple extension into a high pull where we're doing the triple extension shrug, and then our elbows are bending, but we're not catching yet. And then we're going to go into a full clean where we got triple extension, shrug, bent or breaking of the elbows, and then into the catch. Same pattern would be followed with the snatch days, except for we would go into a PVC overhead squat as well to kind of loosen things up. We wouldn't do a barbell overhead until we're actually doing it, just so that we get a little more comfortable with it. So as always, let me know if you have any questions. Wish we could do these hands-on together. Have a good one.